For us, being online wasn't the best choice. I mean, we did it by default and having to, but training clients in person, that's what we're known for, and that's our bread and butter. So for us, it didn't make much sense to only go online. We still continue to train clients online, and we still have clients that normally would leave town. Like we have some clients that live in Canada. They leave for the summer because it's super hot here, and they go back to Canada. Well, they stay online with us and they're training with us. Normally they would put their membership on freeze. And so that's a great asset to have. And we were forced to do it. And so might as well make the best out of the situation. Let's keep that and keep those clients training and paying us while they're out of town. And when they come back in the fall, we got them back again. So I think it's a something that we're going to obviously keep, but I don't think we're going to try to force grow that until we make sure our gym's stable again.
Okay, awesome. So, do you think that now people that are going to be going back, do you think they're going to be going back mostly online or mostly in person, like slowly?
Our current clients, you mean, like gym owners' current clients out there? I think they want to come back in. I think if you have 100 clients, I think 70 of those clients are going to come back in, and maybe 30 are going to want to stay online. And then eventually, after they get more comfortable, all those 30 people come back in. I don't think there's going to be, hey, I never want to go to the gym again. There's going to be a percentage of those people, but for us, it was like less than 5%.
Okay, awesome.
So let's focus.
So yeah, I'm sorry?
Go ahead, man. Go.
Okay. So Tim, I want to ask for your gym, is it one gym that you have?
We have one. We're actually in discussions about buying some buildings and putting in other locations right now. So that's our next chapter. But we've had one gym for 10 years. We've grown it to 8,000 square feet. Near $1 million now. We've lost some revenue, but we've been over $1 million before over the 10 years per year. So it's for now it's one, but we are in talks to kind of expand now.
Wow, awesome. And about how many members do you have, or before this situation you had?
Well, we're a training gym. So all of our clients pay, on the low end, about $150 a month to, $450, $499. Some of them pay $499 a month. Before the shutdown, I think we lost 54 clients is what we lost. Out of those 54 clients that we lost, I think 70% are back. And then there's still 25% that are waiting and seeing what's going on. But some of them are training online too. So we're actually near back to where we were in only 2 weeks. So that's a good sign.
Okay. And so when you said 54, you lost about 54 people. So in total, approximately in your 8,000 square feet, how many members can you fit in?
We could fit 500 clients in here. We've been in this space for just under 5 years. In this location, we're sitting around 325. So we lost 54 of the 325, but now we're back up to 300 again. So, we could grow it. We could grow it to 500 pretty easy. But we've changed some things, and I can get into the model change if you want to, because before we had a lot of large group training going on in here, which large group for us is like groups of 10, 12, 15, 20 people training like metabolic conditioning versus our semi-private training. Since coming back out of the lockdown, we've decided to switch and go almost all in on semi-private training. And for us, that's, 6 clients to 1 coach, individual programming, strength training, more difficult movements. Everybody's kind of on their own program. That's the direction we're going to go versus we called it boot camp. We cut over 50% of our boot camp classes out, and we're trying to shift people into semi-private training. It's just a higher price point. We don't need to have 500 clients to make $1 million in here. We probably need 350 clients paying the semi-private training rates, which is over $300 each. So it's a good, that gave us a chance to really look at our model and look at, what's going to drive the business into the future. And for us, it's not large group training at a small price point. It's going to be less people, higher price point.
Okay. And so you're making that decision based obviously on revenue, and you're looking at that. Is that the only reason why you moved away from boot camp to private semi sessions?
Well, there's a lot of reasons, and we didn't just make this decision hastily. We went and looked at the data. Okay, so the first thing we did, we said, okay, how much revenue is this team training membership bringing in? It turned out to be about 12%. So 12% of our total revenue is coming from this group of people over here. Then we said, okay, how long are these people staying with us versus these people? And we found out pretty quickly that our, team training bootcamp style members were staying about 9.8 months on average versus 36 months with our semi-private training clients. So not only are our semi-private training clients paying more, they're staying almost 3 times, 4 times longer than our lower paying clients. Now, is it easier to sign up a boot camp client? Absolutely. We can run campaigns and sign up people at that low price point all day. However, the value that those clients bring into the business is nowhere near what these clients are. So that was the first thing. We also said, okay, revenue per hour. Okay, so if we have boot camps versus semi-private training, how much revenue can we generate in that hour with that same coach? Well, obviously, we needed to have like 25 people in a class versus 6. Okay, so that was the next thing. And in the back of our minds, the entire time, we said, you know what? Do people really want to get into a room with 25 people and get sweaty next to each other? And we're like, probably not. With this COVID situation, we kind of felt like there was going to be some resistance to that anyway. So those were all the things that said, you know what, let's cut team training out of this as best as we can. And we limited the classes down to 12 people, and we've got people spaced out, and we're cleaning the equipment in between rounds and all this stuff. We had to do all this extra stuff with team training. So not only do they don't stay as long, they pay less, it's harder to train them, there's more resources given to that style of training. We just decided it's just kind of a no-brainer. Let's just go all in on semi-private training.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. It makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about how you got started in fitness, and
Okay.
how you decided to become a gym owner.
Yeah, so my story is a little bit different than a lot of gym owners, where, I was never a personal trainer to come out of the gate. A lot of guys come out as personal trainers. They work for a gym. They're like, I can do this better. And they go open their own place. Maybe they found a wealthy client to kind of fund the deal. And that's not how I started at all. I actually was working in construction. I was a college football athlete. So I was used to being in the gym for, my whole life. And I just enjoyed training. So working out was always something, it was something kind of ingrained in me. I was living in a small town here in Arizona, and I was working at a construction company, but I had to get a gym membership to go work out. So I found this guy, actually the only gym in town. There was a little small boutique gym, but then there was this Anytime Fitness. And back in 2008, Anytime Fitness was, they were just coming around. They wasn't as big as they were now. And I saw this guy running his operation where he was a police officer during the day. He had this gym, and there was 1,400 members, all paying him like 40, 50 bucks a month. And he was never there. I was like, you know what? This is a really easy business. Let me just do what this guy is doing. And I was in construction, managing projects all over the valley, and ended up designing plans to open a gym. And about that same time, really with about 2 weeks before I was about to open, I got laid off. It was the recession of 2008 in Arizona was hit probably one of the hardest. Las Vegas, Arizona, Florida got destroyed, the housing markets. And because I was in residential construction, you're on your ass. You're out on the streets without a job. And they said, sorry, there's nothing we can do. There's just no money left. And the company that had hundreds of employees was down to just 4 employees, which was the 2 owners and a secretary and 1 construction manager. And that was it. Everybody else had to go find new jobs. Luckily, I was 2 weeks from opening. I opened a gym. It was going to be an Anytime Fitness, but, the guys, that investment group in Arizona, owned all the rights to the territory. I couldn't open one, so I opened my own gym called Pulse Fitness. And we were going to just be like Anytime Fitness. We were going to be a 24-hour facility where we had personal trainers in there if you wanted them. But mostly it was just a general access facility because I didn't want to be involved. I wanted it to be a business that ran itself, and I didn't have to be there. Well, because I got laid off, I had to go all in on the business. I learned pretty quickly that Anytime Fitness model without personal training wasn't going to last me very long. So within 3 months, I had just wiped the whole thing. I changed the whole gym model. went to a training facility, and this was in 2010.
How did you pick
So
that up?
what's that?
How did you pick that up?
Well, it was pretty clear when I was looking at my numbers pretty closely, very hands-on in the beginning. We weren't going to make it based on how many clients we were getting, when the rent was going to be due, and all these expenses that came up. And I also noticed the trainers were making a ton of money, but they were independent trainers. They didn't work for me. They paid me rent, and I was feeding them clients because I didn't really care about the training revenue. I just wanted gym memberships. And I realized really quickly when they were making $5,000, $10,000 per client selling them training packages, and I was making $30, something was off. They had no risk. I had all the risk. So I just made a change. I said, you know what, if we do keep going this way, within 6, 8, 10 months, we're probably going to be closed. And that's really the thing that happens with a lot of small businesses is they underestimate the capital they need. They think things are going to be a lot better than they are. And when you get into the business, things change rapidly and reality set in really fast for me. And I said, you know what, if I don't change this, we're not going to be open in a year. So let's change it now. Bite the bullet. I wiped out all the equipment. I didn't even own the equipment yet. It was like 6, 8 months into the business. And, I threw all that stuff in storage. I opened up the training floor. So space was our best piece of equipment we can have. And I just started hiring trainers that worked for me. And then I slowly started getting out of the hole. And we blew up, to be honest with you. When you look at the trajectory after that change of the first year going into a training facility, we blew up. We had so many people. We had to open the doors, and we were training in the parking lot while we were training inside, and it just blew up in the area, which was awesome. And then within 4 years, I had to go and find a new space to move the gym out of. So we went up from 3,000 feet to 8,000 feet. And then we continue to grow over here. So, and now we're at this point where we need to probably have a couple locations. And that's really what I'm in discussions with right now, is to probably buy some buildings and develop some land and do some cool stuff to where I have these little satellite locations, but continue to have this as like the headquarter one. So that's how I got into the business of gym ownership. How I got into the marketing side was pretty interesting. This is where the whole thing changed for me.
Before you get into marketing, I want to just, because I'm gonna forget. There's a couple of things I want to from your story. There's a couple of things I want to mention. Like, you mentioned that you wanted to get into business because you wanted completely hands off. You saw this guy was a police officer. He was very hands off, and you wanted something similar, but like, you got into the business, but you spent so much details in like the minor details in terms of expenses, in terms of profit, where you're making money, where you're not making money. When you're a new business owner, you don't have that, experience. How did you discipline, or how did you get that knowledge to actually focus on and like look at the expenses, even though you're not good at it or you haven't done it before?
It's a really good question. Nobody's asked me that before. And it came down to my dad. My dad was an entrepreneur. He's run companies his whole life. And he would, instead of him teaching me, he would hand me a book. He would say, this is the book you need to read. And in the beginning, when I was really young, it was like books like Who Moved My Cheese. If you've ever read that thing's like, 15 pages long, but it teaches you big lessons. And the two books he gave to me when I opened the gym was E-Myth, which was, the staple in just about every entrepreneur's journey, was E-Myth, and Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. I read them both multiple times. E-Myth made a lot of sense, but it seemed like a lot of work. The whole idea of that book is to treat, even if you just have one location, to treat it like a prototype and to build your systems and build like as if you were going to do a franchise. That to me seemed like too much work. And, I wasn't ever going to do a franchise, but I took the lessons out of that. And then I looked over and I read Cash Flow Quadrant. And if you've ever read that book is the one that really changed my mind on everything. And that's the one that categorizes everybody that's in the workforce into 4 categories. Number 1, employee. Employee is obvious. You go to work, you punch a clock, you get paid for your work, and you go home. That was the top quadrant. The bottom left quadrant was self-employed. Self-employed and business owner, which is the third quadrant. People get those two confused quite a bit. Self-employed people means that you own a job, and without you being involved in the operations, it won't generate revenue, turn a profit. The biggest difference between self-employed and a business owner is that the business owner can remove themselves from the operation and they own the systems and the systems run the business. That's where I finally said, aha, I need to get out of the self-employed quadrant and get over to the business owner quadrant, because if I don't, I'm always going to be involved and I'll never get out of this place. And that's what changed the game. So my dad giving me books, because he knew I wasn't going to listen to him, but if I read the book, I might listen. He knew what was in the book and he knew what I needed to hear. He just gave me the book to get the message to me. And then the final quadrant's investor. That's when your money makes money and everything's, you're not involved in any of it. So I'm living in the business owner quadrant for Pulse Fitness, and in ProFit, which is the agency, I'm still self-employed. So once I figured that out, everything made sense. And so I had to go learn that stuff and figure out how to get myself removed from the operation if I was ever to get out of the day-to-day here.
Okay. So when you were working as a construction worker, to be able to open a gym, you need to have funds. So were you like collecting money on the side and you were like hoping to start a business in the future?
Yeah, great. These are great questions, man. The honest truth is, my wife had a very good job and she was making well into six figures, and we had saved a lot of money because we lived still like we were college kids, and we saved up a bunch of money. But that's not how I really got started. That's what kept me in business. How we got started, it was my dad again said, hey, you need to go write a business plan and go have a meeting with the bank, and you need to go get a loan and get funded for your operation. And so one weekend I went to Starbucks and I had this whole plan. I had it all in my head, and I just punched the keyboard for about 4 hours with like 6 giant coffees. And I knocked out this whole business plan in about 4 hours at a Starbucks. I set a meeting up with the bank, and it was going to be a 15-minute meeting. Hey, tell us what you're going to do and we'll see if we can fund you. And I went in there for 15 minutes. I came out 2.5 hours later. I had the vice president in there, and I was answering any question and every question that I had an answer for. They must have thought I was a genius, but I was just so ready. I was so ready for this thing, and I knew all the answers. They gave me a loan. It was an SBA loan, which in the U.S. is a Small Business Administration, and I think it was for like $99,000. I think that was like, as soon as you get it to 100,000, something changes there for their rules. So I got 100 grand, just under 100,000. I put it all into the construction. I put it all into the equipment. And again, within 6 months, that whole business plan was out the window. Nothing mattered anymore. So we had to figure it out, but I was already on the hook for the loan, and we had opened. But that's how I got the money, was writing the business plan and going and have a meeting with the bank to get funded.
Okay, so isn't that a huge risk? Like you bought all this equipment, you paid for rent, insurance, bank loan, interest, and then you don't even have any customers yet, and you're not even sure if this is going to work or not.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because I was on a TV show that the gal asked me this question. It came down to, I was just cocky enough and I was willing to go in and I was willing to fail. If I failed, whatever, I'd go get a job and I would rebuild myself. I wasn't scared to fail, and I wasn't scared to go like I said, what's the worst thing that can happen? I lose all my money and I start from zero. And I was willing to take that risk because I felt confident that I personally could get everything back that I ever needed within a year. And I still think that today. And that's why I take these massive risks, because I'm so confident. And this isn't to be cocky. It's just to say, I'll bet on myself before I bet on anybody else. And I'm willing to do the work, and I'll stay up for 5 weeks straight, just making sure the thing gets done. So it's that tenacity of the entrepreneur and the risk taking that comes into play. You can't be scared, and you have to say, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm living on my friend's couch for a year, and I'm just going to I'll figure it out. That's what the worst thing was going to happen for me. And I was willing to take it. I was willing to take the risk.
Okay. So, you're very comfortable in terms of like, you had a job, and like, you said you can find another job and you were very comfortable. Why would you put yourself through so much pain, all that debt you have, of shy of 100,000, and like do that to yourself? Like, you're losing sleep, you're probably not spending as much time with your family. You're not eating as well. Like, why would you do that?
Well, you know what? Not that I'm not a good employee. It's not that. It's just I wanted to build something that I was proud of myself. versus working for somebody else in doing just that. And so I have big ideas and I have big, for plans and business and everything. And I just felt I wanted to do something for myself versus going and getting a job I could be very comfortable. I've got a degree. I can figure things out on I would be a good employee, but I just wanted something that was mine that I could look back and say, yeah, I took the risk and I built that thing. And there's not that many people can say that. Right. So that's really where the drive comes from, is to just be able to say, yeah, I've built this.
Okay. And where did that come from? Like, where did you get the idea of like you wanted to build something and have something lasted? Like,
I think it came from my childhood with my dad owning businesses and stuff, but that really wasn't it, because I didn't understand what he was even doing when I was growing up. He had an international company. He was gone to Japan and Egypt, and growing up, he was always gone from the house. But I didn't look at that as being what I wanted to do. But I think subconsciously, that's kind of what the direction I was taking. But I think what it came down to is the construction companies that I was working for, the project that you might build for 2 years, you can drive past that 20 years from now and you can remember the memories of building that building and building that project and saying that I was on that. I see that detail on the the overhang. This was going to be a nightmare and we figured it out, and I got the engineer involved, and that's the stuff that drove me to saying, hey, I want to build something I could look back on and say, yeah, all the memories that went into that place, versus just going and doing a job every day. You know what I mean? It's just a different mindset.
okay. And did someone like tell you not to do this?
Everybody told me not to do it, including my dad. Everybody told me I was crazy, the recession, don't do it. Everybody, just like when I was going to buy a Harley motorcycle, everybody talked about the crash that their friend was in and he lost his life, and they're so dangerous and don't take that risk. But I still did it anyway, and I think it was because I was wise enough to understand that people are just looking out for me, and the reason they telling me not to do it is because they're scared, not because I'm scared. And that's there wasn't any. My wife was the only person that backed me up in this whole thing. Everybody else, including my parents, said, don't do it. This is the worst economy. You don't want to get into this. You're going to lose your business. Everything's going to suck. And I was like, screw it. I'm doing it anyway. And it's interesting.
Awesome. And so now you want to talk about like marketing, right? Like you said, your business changed. Actually, before we talk about the marketing, like, did you use your knowledge from construction in terms of the way you built your gym?
Yeah, the construction side was amazing because I had architects and I had the contractors all at my fingertips, and I was able to manage the project and build the space out and design it, especially the new space. The new space that we moved in 2015, I was hands-on. I was in here doing the construction with the guys and running the project. Not that I didn't have a construction company doing it for me, but I was very involved. And I remember that we have a smoothie bar up front. And I remember pulling over on the side of the road. I was driving to California. I was like, I got an idea for the detail for the smoothie bar, the overhang. We're going to have this little detail. And I drew it out and I took a picture and I sent it to the contractor. And when I got back in town, they had built that thing because, I thought about it. So these are all the little details that went into this place are 100% out of my own brain because of the construction side. So if you were to walk into this gym today at Pulse Fitness here in Scottsdale, you would walk in, you wouldn't realize it's a gym because you see a lobby, you see the front desk, and it's a smoothie bar. And the gym, you got to go around the corner to get into the gym. And I everything from the hallway, walking down the hallway, I want it to be like coming out of the locker room, going onto the football field. And the coach's office has a glass mirror, and this is how the strength training room was set up at my college, and the coaches could watch the training floor from their office, and everything that went into it, to the leaderboard where we set our records on that's from football, and everything's like built into this place from kind of where my experiences through life, I guess, if you think about it. I didn't just say, hey, let's build a gym tomorrow and just hope for the best. I thought about everything.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense, how you took your knowledge of what you had, your passion with football, and how you made something so unique. So, that's awesome.
Feels good, dude. And that kind of goes back to the whole thing I was saying. Like, I'd rather do this and be proud of something than just, go through life just working for somebody and, hopefully hope for the best.
Yeah, and like your experience at a job, was it good or was it motivating or was it just like something you had to
I
do
lo-
for a living?
I loved it. I love construction. I loved being on the project and I love being in charge. And so maybe it's being a leader just in general, like, because even going back to football, I was always the captain of the football team. I was always the academic all-American on the team. And it was like I was always, that was just my role on the team, and I take that into business too. And same with the team that I run here, my fitness director and my coaches that work for me. I hope they look at me as a leader because I feel like I'm leading. Everything comes down to me. I'll take the ownership of everything. If we fail, it's not their fault. It's mine. And I think it's just a mix mash of my whole life experiences all into one thing right here.
Awesome, Tim. So yeah, let's talk about like your marketing and how you learn marketing. Like I said, you were in construction, you were a gym owner, you weren't maybe like were you struggling to get clients? Is that what you got into marketing?
Well, we had to get clients, right? So I was forced into figuring. Here we go. I had to figure it out. I knew that I would do the work, whatever it took to get in. In the very early gym days, I was really first to the table with automation. There wasn't funnels and there wasn't anything out there. There was email marketing was big. There was obviously direct mail was still big. Door hangers. We did everything to get clients. So I was in that seat. I had to drive business in. We didn't have a whole lot of money to go hire these expensive agencies. And the ones that I did hire, they really didn't do the job anyway. So I was like, you know what? I got to figure this out. So I dove headfirst into email marketing in 2010. So in 2010, I got Infusionsoft. I learned automation. I learned how it could work. And we drove so much business in just with email campaigns.
And
And from
how are you learning these email? How are you learning email marketing? Were you taking courses? Were you like
I
searching
was
online?
I was learning it on my own. It was very interesting. It was I would and again, it was so early, so there wasn't courses. There might be there was books. There was books out. In fact, there was books on Infusionsoft, which I still have. I mean, they're way outdated, but giant books. And I would learn and I'd go online. And I think probably there was some YouTube stuff going on. It's nothing like it is today, where you've got a course for this and a leader for that and a guru for this and a company for that. That didn't exist. There was some coaching companies out there, but they weren't specialized like they are today. So I saw opportunities and I learned, I said, you know what, this will work. And let me figure out how this will work. And so I learned copywriting. I learned automation. I learned how to get email addresses. I didn't buy lists. I I guess guerrilla marketed to where I would set out in front of the grocery store and I would have a sign up sheet for a free week or a free something. I would get one email at a time, and I would get one email at a time. Anybody that walked into the gym, the first rule was get their contact information, because I knew how valuable that email address was 10 years ago. And so we've built our list up and we've grown it up. And there's a lot of people that will buy lists. And I think that's really it's not a great use of your money, but it's also not going to give you a return on your investment, because people are not expecting to hear from you. You don't want to email them.
Okay.
So I learned that back then, but the game changed when obviously .com secrets came out, and I read that cover to cover in probably 3 days. And I said, wow, this makes sense. I bought this, I guess this was 2015. I got into ClickFunnels. I was probably maybe 6 months into their company, and I had already had some funnels going on. And Facebook ads was fresh, and I would run ads for my own gym, and overnight I would spend $500 on Facebook, and I would make $17,000 in literally 2 weeks. It was so easy because nobody was doing it. And it was like we were doing 21-day challenges and 14-day programs and all this stuff back in 2015. And I didn't know what I was doing, and I still would make money. I said, well, this is too easy. This is simple. You slap up a funnel that probably had typos in it and everything else, but I just did it. And I ran ads. And I remember, in the beginning, we would run ads for 2 weeks, spend $500, and we would have 80 to 90 people come in that have already purchased online. They didn't like opt in, and then we had to call them. They put their credit card in online, and they joined the program that we didn't even know what we were going to do with these people. So we just did it, and we started being really successful. And I was in some mastermind groups with some gym owners, and I just started sharing it. Like, guys, you got to do what I'm doing here. Let me show you what I'm doing. And most of the guys and girls that I worked with in the very beginning, they were just didn't want to learn it like I did. And it was, I always felt like it was easy for me to do, but I thought anybody can do what I'm doing. So here, just let me show you what I'm doing. Use this funnel and run this ad and go. Everybody said, Tim, will you just do it for me? And I was doing it for them for free. I would just duplicate what I was doing here for them, and I was doing it for free. And so I remember my first client, his name is Frank Nash, still a good friend of mine in Boston, and we ran his ads, and he had 1,600 opt-ins. Not even, it was probably 3 weeks into the campaign, 1,600 opt-ins and probably 200 signups. And signups, I mean, credit card processed already before. They'd never walked into his gym before, and they sign up online, and he's like, Tim, dude, what are you doing? So I did it for him. I did it for a friend, Whitney, in Pennsylvania, and I did it for this guy, Rod, in Melbourne, Florida. And I said, okay, guys, I'm doing this for free. I don't know if it's going to work, but I need to test it for myself. So I did it for them, and quickly, and when I mean quickly, within 9 months of doing this, we didn't spend 1 cent on marketing, and we already generated $1.4 million for Profit. And that's where we got our ClickFunnels awards, and all this stuff came out of word of mouth and just taking the risk and being first to market, because there wasn't anybody else doing this stuff. There might've been 1 or 2 guys. And that's how it all started. And it was a whirlwind. This was 2016 when I got into it. So I remember our first funnel was July of 2015. And by the end of 2015, we had already done about $600,000 in 6 months. And within 9 months overall, we were at 1.4 million.